We will start now. I think it's already 6:15. Sorry for being late. There were some technical issues that we were facing, due to which we are running a little late. Uh, I will introduce myself first. I am Yash Majitia, and I'm currently the moderator and host of this entire session. And the session will be of about somewhere about 1 to 1.5 hours. Okay. So before starting the session, good evening to everyone, and I would like to welcome all the office bearers and members of GICA. Additionally, I would also like to welcome both the speakers, NK Patel sir and Shashwat Bandyopadhyay sir, and welcome to all of the guests and students too. So, with regards to this session on resilient and sustainable planning concepts for pandemic conditions, was found to be need of the hour considering the current situation of pandemic that we are facing as of now. And so considering this, we got an idea to host this lecture, and thereby we are hosting this lecture with regards to management of pandemic in this situation. Now, there are many joinees who are not the members of GICA. So we'll just give you a brief background about GICA. So Gujarat Institute of Civil Engineers and Architects was established in year 1947 and is now a unique professional organization. GICA is a premier institute of civil engineers and architects and functioning as a non-government organization, registered under charitable trust and society. GICA has a membership of more than 4,300 professionals, comprising of civil engineers, architects, builders, developers, town planners, valuers, structural engineers, and contractors who are either employed or self-employed. So now with this, I would like to invite our President, Shri K.C. Patel, to address the gathering today.
Good evening, everyone. I would to like welcome all GIC member, guests, and distinguished speakers, Sri N.K. Patel and Dr. Shashwat Bandyopadhyay, for addressing this seminar on resilience and sustainable urban planning concepts for pandemic conditions. GIC has always been front runner, enhancing technical knowledge, and usually organize about 3 to 4 technical lectures, seminars every month. However, COVID-19 situation is a challenge for addressing lecture with physical presence to ensure knowledge dissemination activities continues as usual in this challenging situation. The Gujarat Institute of Civil Engineers and Architects Study Circle Committee has organized 2 webinars, one each on 18 April 2020 and 19 April 2020. Urban resilience has conventionally been defined as a measurable ability of any urban system with its enhancements to maintaining continuously through all shocks and stresses, will positively adapting and transforming towards sustainability, and therefore a resilient city is on the assess plans and acts to prepare for the response to hazards, natures, and human-made sudden and slow snowset expected and unexpected resilient cities better position to protect and enhance people lives, secure development and gains faster and invisible environment and drive positive change. Our distinguished speaker with throw light and how city can be planned to be a resilient and sustainable for such pandemic condition. So now I request to continue further proceeding. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for your kind address. Now, I would like to just brief you all what is the structure of the presentation. So we'll be having Shri N.K. Patel sir addressing us first for about 20-25 minutes, followed by Shashwat Bandyopadhyay sir, and then we can have a short question answer session of about 10 to 15 minutes going. Uh, Now, as N.K. Patel sir will firstly address us, I will just unmute. Yeah. So before Shri N.K. Patel sir starts to address us, I will just like to give his brief background because many of us know him, but there might be some fraction of people who might not be knowing him as there are various guests also joining in this seminar. So he is a civil engineer and urban planner, and he started his career with Town Planning Department of Gujarat and later moved to Ahmedabad Urban Development Authority. After a period of 2 decades of experience as a town planner in public sector, he shifted to private sector as a real estate developer. His contribution to the city landscape by building large range of housing projects serving the poor and middle income groups is a vision through his brand Sun Builders, which it displays. He has contributed to development of town planning and civil engineering professions as the vice chairman as well as chairman of professional bodies like ITPI Institute of Town Planners India, Gujarat Institute of Civil Engineers and Architects, and Gujarat Institute of Housing and Estate Development Gayad. He is also visiting faculty at SEPT University, Nirma University, and Anand University. So currently, Shri N.K. Patel is chairman and managing director of Sun Builders Group. Additionally, he is also the chairman of ITPI Gujarat chapter, and as well as also the president of Sports Club of in Ahmedabad. And he has also authored a book in December 2018 with regards to town planning scheme, a tool for making planning work for a city development, and which is very successful and widely appreciated by the industry as a whole. So now I will request Shri N.K. Patel sir to start his address.
Thank you. Yes, can you hear me? Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes,
Yes.
sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Yeah. So good evening. Welcome to this webinar. First, what is global urbanization? 46% of global population will live in urban spaces by 2050. This is a UN estimate. Similarly, there are more 56% of people will live in urban areas as per the UN. Now, what is the density of our globe? So if you count the density as a whole, there is only a 50% per square meter in the world. If we count the density by city, then Manila in Philippines is with the highest density of something 46,000 person per square kilometer. Mumbai in India having the highest density of 32,000 person per square kilometer. So the urban city. So generally there are 600 cities. We generate more than 70% GDP of the globe. So here question arises, what should be the density? Density should be a high quality density or density should be with a livability. So we had a brief introduction about global urbanization. Now the sustainability, environmentally responsible land use, and development with supportive and cohesive urban administration. That is a sustainability. We much know about the sustainable development since last 2 decades. Now resilience. Resilience is a capacity to bounce back. Resilience is a capacity of an individual. Resilience may be a capacity of an institute, a community, or a business. Resilience may be a resilience of a supply chain, infrastructure provision resilience, or urban place and planning parameters resilience. So, resilience in general, what explains the ability of a system to cope with changes or to attain the equilibrium during and afterwards any natural or man-made calamities. Cities can never be a risk proof. city can never be a hazard proof. So resiliency in city is required to minimize such effects. First of all, I will introduce, there is a Rockefeller Foundation. Few years before, they had one program of 100 cities where sustainability and resilience they have counted. World Bank was also involved in a Rockefeller Foundation research work, but Rockefeller resilience research is generally done on a natural and man-made calamities. There is not much has been done for a pandemic calamity resilience. So now in calamity, one can have natural calamity like earthquake, flooding, tsunami, forest fire, etc. Social calamities like communal riot, political revolution, or terrorism. And pandemic calamities like epidemic or diseasable. So Rockefeller Foundation, as I said, they have some guidelines, but there is no guideline for pandemic by Rockefeller Foundation. So there is one another things, Global Health Index. Now, Hopkins Center of Health Security has devised one health index, and that health index is only for a nuclear threat. So right now on a globe, there is no such index where in case of pandemic, how it should be scaled. Now I will take you to the history of various global pandemic. So cholera outbreak in London, that was in 1830. It claimed more than 10,000 lives in the London. London's Metropolitan Board of Works constituted after that. And outcome was there was a better sanitation movement whole globe. After the cholera outbreak in London, and housing regulation has been implemented. After that, there was a Spanish flu in 1918. This Spanish flu has killed more than 50 million people around the globe. And tuberculosis epidemic, if we talk about neo tuberculosis epidemic in early 20th century, right? So at that time, I will quote one very good incident. After World War II, one Mr. Frederick Law, he was a sanitary officer in New York Municipal Corporation. And he found that in case of such pandemic or epidemic, there is a requirement of some open spaces central level. So this Frederick Law was a person who convinced the municipal authority of New York and created a central park. So all those who have visited New York, in the Manhattan, there is a huge central park, and which is an outcome of an epidemic. And right now, if you've seen on the TV, that temporary hospital has been erected in this central park at Manhattan. So what is the outcome of tuberculosis of New York? As I have said you, at that time, overcrowding condition in the tenements of the New York, right? They were considered at fever nest, or they were considered as a lung block. And this lung block conditions turns into a tuberculosis. And due to that, New York has implemented housing reforms. So special law has been erected after this epidemic for housing reforms. And similarly, they have enacted very efficient metro system after that epidemic. So it was an outcome of an epidemic. So the whole globe has to learn our lessons from this pandemic. If we talk about other pandemic or epidemic, the severe acute respiratory syndrome, we commonly known as a SARS, that was in 2003. I will tell you how and when it was generated. So there is one colony in Hong Kong which is known as a Amoy Garden. Amoy Garden is a cluster of 19 high-rise towers block. And there were about 19,000 people were staying in that block. This 19,000 population, you can visualize, it is enough to populate several villages. So, in this Amoy Garden, one housing colony in block E, there were various blocks out of 19, only in one block, there were 321 residents were diagnosed by the SARS. So outcome of the SARS is started from Hong Kong with one colony. So now we can see that how cities can be terrifying incubator of such pandemic or epidemic. If we talk about natural calamity, just in 2014, there were more than 150 natural catastrophes, which has taken a life of something 26,000 people, human loss. So, and finally, if I talk about the Ebola. So Ebola is an epidemic across the sub-Saharan African continent. And now, if we compare the Ebola, SARS, and the present COVID-19 mortality rate, Ebola was most dangerous, most severe, mortality rate was around 60%, while in case of SARS, it was 30%. So we can think that COVID-19 will not be, or as per the present statistics, it is going to be around 10% or lesser than that. So World Health Organization on 11th of March 2020 declared COVID-19 as a global pandemic. Out of 2.6 billion global population, at present, 1.3 billion population is under lockdown. Now, I have divided my presentation in few slots. One is we have seen the global urbanization. Then I have addressed the story of various epidemics. And now, in epidemic or pandemic condition, what is the stories of cities? First time in global urban history, first time there is a urban space and global movement of people and goods has given a threat for pandemic. Why this pandemic has been occurred? It is only due to there is an urban space and there is a global movement. So the movement of a people, movement of a goods have given a threat, given a rise to a pandemic. But if I have narrated you earlier, the London pandemics or a New York Spanish flu, all infectious diseases are always linked with the cities. So at that time, I remind you one quote of a Lee Corbusier. It's a very difficult question. We know even Lee Corbusier, who prized efficiency of movement, Lee Corbusier wants efficiency of movement. He valued the people bumping into each other. He valued in the city, in urban space, people should be there. They should be passing, they should be crossing. And this movement of people gives energy and cosmopolitanization to the city. Can you think a Delhi with 200 villages? No. We want the metropolitan Delhi. We want the vibrant Delhi. We want the people with a life, right? So, but since last 3 or 4 weeks, as a urbanized also, we are biased towards the global cities. Sometimes we think that the villages are something better than the cities. But actually, if you search how the COVID-19 has been emerged, then it is a story started from a Wuhan, not from Wuhan city, outskirts of Wuhan city. It traveled to peri-urban area of Germany. One mechanic went to Germany, a city of Germany, where the factory was in peri-urban area. So it is not a directly city to city touch. But after all, we are in a more complex global urban system. And this more complex urban system has created a bias in our mind to think about our cities. So in this situation, there are few questions which come into my mind in this uncertainty. First question, how do we plan cities to still function when public transport and roads are made inaccessible? How we have to plan the city when the transport is closed, roads are inaccessible, you are in lockdown condition. How one can plan the city in such condition? The next question is, how do we limit the effect of urban economics? When there is no human to human touch, or there is a minimized human touch, then what will be about the urban economics? As we know, the cities are the growth engine. If we talk about India, more than 75-80% GDP of our country is through cities only. So how to limit the effects of urban economies? The next question comes to my mind is, how rapidly existing public use can be changed with prefabricated modular deployable units. As just I told you about a Central Park of New York, which has been converted into a transit hospital. So how these public spaces and public use very fast, rapidly, we can change in prefabricated modular structures. The next question comes in my mind is, how can a sensitive urban design or sensitive building design cushion people's moral, think our moral, think our sensitivities, think our psycho condition. So in that case, as an environment from build professional, it is our duty when we are quarantined. So how we should design our built environment, our buildings in this sensitive condition. The next question is, how in such condition we have to build our city with more resilience. So after addressing such questions, it comes, is there any gap in the city planning? Is there any need to look after? Is there any thing to have more response, more resilient? So for doing that, what should be the aspect? What should be the different aspect to make our city more resilient or more sustainable in such epidemic or pandemic condition? So what should be? First question comes to in my mind is, what should be the healthy density? I have already told you the Manila density, the Mumbai density. So what should be the density? The 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 person per square kilometer? So mostly, as I have told you, the pandemics are all inherently anti-urban. But density required for economics, density required for culture, density required the political. As I said, cities are the powerhouse. So first thing, what should be the good density? If somebody says higher density may cause more pandemics or more such severe fatality rate, I will give you an example of Hong Kong and Singapore or Taipei. All are the big city, but they have controlled the virus compared to the Indian city, compared to the Italian city, compared to the New York. if you see the Hong Kong or Singapore or Taipei, they have controlled the virus compared to better few rural area of Europe, like Lombardy or Veneto in Italy. They are not an urbanized area. They are the peri-urban area. They are not the main city. So density is not the only thing which we have to consider. Now, second aspect, affordable housing. In past, as I have told you, during the Spanish flu epidemics in New York, what they have done? They have erected a public housing policy. So number of the tenements, those were a cause for tuberculosis and other disease, they have removed them. So right now also we have witnessed the virus in Dharavi in Mumbai, or virus in walled city of Delhi, or virus in walled city of our Ahmedabad city. So affordable housing is one of the criteria. First is density, second is appropriate and affordable housing. So upgrading of more informal settlement is an issue which will emerge in post-COVID situation. Third is a public spaces. We want a very multi-purpose public spaces, multi-purpose buildings. The buildings could be scalable, emergency preparedness plan. Each public space, each public building, which can be convertible, which can be multi-purpose, but it should have a preparedness plan. Then how to integrate? In each and every city, there are blue spaces, green spaces, and gray spaces. How to integrate these spaces? As we know, gray spaces are the manufacturing, the industries, logistics, godowns. Blue spaces are slums, ghettos, and public housings. And green spaces are urban lung, urban open spaces, gardens, and urban forests. So we need right now, within an urban fabric, a larger open spaces like Central Park in Mumbai for implementing various emergency service. So again, first was the density, second was the design, third was the public spaces, right? So in town planners may consider leaving a very small parcel at a very strategic conditions of urban level for pandemic condition, which is absence right now in a master plan of each and every city. This is a lesson we have to learn. And in future also, there will be a renewed focus on finding design solution for individual building, design solution for wider neighborhoods that enable the people to socialize with each other. We have not to pick. Right now, we are just packed like sardine. Sardine is one fish, a very small piece which you just pack in a cage. So we are just like a sardine, the urban people. So we have to look something like that. Then a different approach we have to consider for the neighborhood, open spaces. So in that case, I'm tempted to give you a very good example. One Mr. Oscar Newman. Oscar Newman is an architect and city planner from New York. He came with one theory, that is a defensible space theory. What is defensible space theory? Defensible space theory, which he encompasses the idea about how to reduce the crime, how to prevent the neighborhood, how to safeguard the safety, how to prevent the environment preservation, how to put the social control, how to make the public health in community design. So now we have to revise and devise Oscar Newman's defensible space. And fourth is urban movement. Fourth aspect is urban movement. Day by day, there will be a decline cost of distance. More companies will establishing system for their staff from work from home. These are habits likely to persist. After post-COVID, more company will be going to be tempted to have work from home. So our old principle, job proximity to job, as we were telling about shelter to employment distance, will not be that much significant factor. So, and as I have told you, okay, there will be a city center and there are far-flung villages in 30, 40, 50 kilometers on the trade routes. So urban movement will be one of the criteria. Now, in pandemic condition, we have seen that it is a lockdown. There are few red hotspots area is also there. So how to spread the local manufacturing and local supply? There was an existing chain, but due to the pandemic, various restrictions, we have to show a alternate supply route in our master plans, in our local plan, in our town planning schemes. Similarly, we cannot stop the community movement 100%. So we have to, community still has to rely on essential employees like healthcare employees, like police, like grocery store worker. So in that case, micro mobility options like e-scooters, bike share ride should be there. Right now in San Francisco, in few cities, there are few stations at each phalang or each mile where you can just take a e-scooters, go some 3, 4, 5 mile and put the e-scooters. One of the reports says in March only in Beijing city, more than 187%, there was an increase in bike share ride. So this is also one of the requirement. And now our new transportation system, either you talk about metro or other things, it should be very flexible and human scale transportation options we have to derive or we have to design. And finally, for micro mobility also, adequate and safe infrastructure for walking and cycling. Okay, suppose a pandemic comes, some flooding comes, some earthquake comes. So in that case, there is a route already there. So few roads will be vehicular-free road, and where one can apply for walking, one can apply for cycling. And finally, to isolate the red zone, I have found in Ahmedabad, in Gulbai Tekra, which is in a West Ahmedabad, which is a elite, high density, high worth, high rich people zone. But that slum hutment have got a 6 approach. So right now, how to block that red zone? So your road network also should be considered in that fashion. Then the 5th one is a city and regional planning. Now, after pandemic, the city regional planning linkage should be increased. Why? The production chains in surrounding region up to 60 kilometers in case of India. There should be a proper regional plan linked with the city plan. Why it is required? Okay, suppose this is a pandemic, so there is no energy outbreak. But in case of flooding, suppose there is no energy or electricity supply. So there should be a regional linkage for energy, regional linkage for economics, transport network, and in this region, at least basic food production. Basic food production should be allowed. So in regional plan only, there should be a basic food production should be there. And As I have discussed you earlier, decentralizing the cities into smaller community will not be possible. Why? Is all if we decentralize the city, but even though there is going to be a contact, so it is not a foolproof solution. And there is a in developed countries there is a urban farming, like the day-to-day vegetable needs and fruit needs. There is a hydroponics. Hydroponics is a one agricultural harvesting system where without the soil you can cultivate the vegetable, you can cultivate the fruits also. So city regional planning linkage is a fourth. Fifth is a digital data. Uh, Now, new proverb will be like that. Okay? As I have told you in London, the London epidemics in 1860s has created a sanitation engineering, has created a building bylaws, has created the value of natural air and sunlight. And now, digital infrastructure to combat these epidemics, digital infrastructure might be a sanitation of future. So, what will be the sanitation? So, digital infrastructure might be a sanitation of future. More city level granular data will empower. If city has a more granular data, city will be more empowered to combat or to come out this pandemic condition. City will easily or rapidly will reach the community groups. City administration will reach various sectors through this updated data. And in recent current pandemic also, Taipei and Singapore, they have learned the lessons in 2003 SARS. And due to that, they had excellent digital data and digital handling expertise. And due to that, either South Korea, Seoul, or Taipei or Singapore, or in some up to some extent Israel, right? Data has helped them in assessing the pandemics and their fast and available solutions. Here also, I will tell you the advanced robotics. When you talk about the digital data, so the electronics, hardware and software is part of it. So Singapore, South Korea, Israel have used their cell phone and other location data to help contain the coronavirus outbreak. At that time, there is one question. India or USA being a democratic country, what will be the situation of individuals' privacy? It is our constitutional right. So we have to change our law in case of such pandemic or epidemic or natural disasters. This digital data can be used, a personal digital data can be used for the people's safety at large. And finally, the governance. The sixth point is a governance. Governance is the main key. Here I will request the GICA management also. What was our experience? What was the dynamism of Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation? So there should be one such webinar for pandemics and our urban governance, where the expert from that field will throw more light in that area. So governance dimensions are more important than planning dimension or designing dimension or medical infrastructure or medical human resources. So in that case, I suggest a pyramid where power delegation has to be given to the bottom at community level. Power has been given to the corporate to look after that his ward, like Mohalla clinic in Delhi, right? Similar kind of, in case of pandemic, I'm not talking in a general way, but in case of pandemic, some more power and more responsibility and power has been given at local level, at municipal corporation level. So finally, the right kind of leadership, right kind of governance to take decisive actions is also one of the very vital aspects in this pandemic. So if I go finally for the conclusion, COVID-19 is going to be a massive game changer. COVID-19 is going to be a massive game changer. Cities should think about ensuring supply of commodities. Cities should now think about the inequalities. City has to think about the people, those who are out of the economic cycle, the slum dwellers, the informal workers, hawkers. So we have to consider these deep inequalities. Now we have to build more resilient city, more resilient supply chains. We have to allocate the particular trading route or alternative trading route. And we have to prepare, assessing the city's preparedness, a preparedness plan, a resilience plan. If you go to the master plan, earlier there was only a land use plan, but now in last decade, there is a transportation or commuting plan is there, there is an infrastructure plan is there. So now the days has come. There should be a sustainable development and resilient development. There should be a resilient plan which comes into the force in case of such calamities. So I am very much confident that cities will be able to weather the crisis and become more stronger and more resilient to such pandemics. We will come back and city will be more viable. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, sir, for a brief, insightful lecture on this. And now we will move on to our second speaker, Dr. Shashwat Bandyopadhyay. And before we ask him to give his lecture, we would like to provide a small introduction of Dr. Shashwat Bandyopadhyay. So Dr. Bandyopadhyay is an urban planning professional with advanced qualification in infrastructure planning and management. His doctoral research work focused on climate change and urban vulnerability in India, which we are anyways talking today regarding vulnerability. He is presently a lead professor in urban infrastructure planning program at the CEPT University. Dr. Bandyopadhyay has over 24 years of experience in urban development sector in South Asia with focus on city development planning and designing of environmental infrastructure. Dr. Shashwat presently is the coordinator of specialized training program for Indian Smart and Amrut cities at CEPT, offering need based on capacity building programs on urban planning, integrated capacity building to mission cities. He is also the founder of India's most successful social media platforms, India Urban Forum and Indian Smart Cities Forum. So now we will request Dr. Shashwat to deliver his address.
Thank you, Yash, and thank you, GICA. Am I audible, Yash?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening, friends. Good evening to all GICA members. Also, Mr. KC Patel, Sri NK Patel, and all the functionaries of GICA Gujarat, as well as all colleagues who are joining from all over India. Apologies that some of you could not join through this Zoom meeting. So some of you have joined through YouTube program. So thanks for at the end of the evening. Thanks for joining this this discussion. Also, happy World Heritage Day today. I know today is 18th April, and Ahmedabad we are a World Heritage City. So happy World Heritage Day to all of us, those who are here in Ahmedabad. Just as we were discussing, and a very nice introductory talk was given by Mr. Patel, I want to take that forward and I want to share some of my thoughts because it's very early, because COVID is now unfolding. And all the urban planning community and habitat professionals, we are trying to understand how is this whole crisis is unfolding given a very kind of a rapid situation that is emerging in our context. For example, this today afternoon, we in Gujarat had about 1280 cases. And out of those 1280 cases, 760 are from Ahmedabad, about 150 are from Surat and Barodara. So out of this 1260, you can see about 1060 cases are from urban areas. So the COVID is becoming a major urban problem, particularly if you look at that India's geographics, the way it is planning. So I must thank GICA for organizing this very meaningful discussion today. I would like to share some of my thoughts. I'd like to share the screen with you, and then we can take this discussion forward. So what I am going to talk about today is that what Mr. Patel also said, that COVID-19 is not a challenge, it's also an opportunity to build back better. The idea of resilience is actually when you are stressed, you are bouncing back. So here, when we have a severe disruption of our life and living, so how it is a crisis, it is a challenge, but at the same time, probably we are seeing some opportunity to bouncing back and building back better. And this building back better is called resilience. And hopefully it remains sustainable in our discussion. So this is what I think some of you have seen. This is an unprecedented event at a global scale. In the entire century, we have not seen, which has almost affected more than 2.2 million people, and about 150,000 people have died. And in India, we are closing about 15,000 such cases. But fortunately in India, our mortality rate has been low, very low, significantly low so far. So that's a very good signage for us into this whole. And this is what Ahmedabad, as you know, some people are mapping constantly. And if you overlay, as you know, Ahmedabad, if you overlay Ahmedabad COVID cases constantly and over the land use and over the spaces, probably this is the time you can get some relation where what Mr. Patel just highlighted, whether density or build spaces, open areas, collectively together, what are the kind of challenges emerging. And I think this kind of constant analysis, the technical member of GICA should also proactively take up and feed the city government to that these are the kind of spaces, these are the kind of manifestation that this is happening in present cases. So what is happening here in COVID-19 is we are looking at a massive disruption of life and living. What our Honorable Prime Minister very nicely put it up as Jaan and Jahan. Cities are becoming the center of COVID action. Like other pandemic, climate change and other, for all COVID cases, if you see globally, it's the cities and city centers, which are, except for sparing some other cases, cities are becoming very important center for action, research, reflection, so that whatever urban planning, urban governance that we need to talk about is around related to this aspect. Also, it has brought the debate of density, as Mr. Patel was mentioning, density and resilience back to our urban planners. Because whenever I ask my colleagues about density, particularly in planning school, they always bring and throw something about density in relation to US and North America and Europe. But in pandemic and disease, the density is not about build density. The density in pandemic is live density. How many people in a square meter of space living? So we have to actually encompass, change the lens, relook at what is the live density parameter, not number of dwelling or gross floor area or GFA and FSI. It has to be, we need to. So fortunately, it has brought back this whole relation, density and resilience. And unfortunately, we do not have much of empirical work. And this is what I would also request some young people like Yash and some of other students who are probably watching, that we need to look at it, take Ahmedabad as our living case study, relate this whole aspects of different interpretation of density. And here the engineers does define density differently. My architects colleagues define this density differently. So we have to bring the whole density debate back very interestingly. Also, the issues of urban housing, infrastructure, and parks and open spaces. And this has brought enormously this whole debate. When you say, don't cross the Lakshman Rekha of your house, there are people who didn't have the house, people who are sharing spaces. If you go to the Gamtal of Ahmedabad, go to Memnagar village, you go to some of the traditional villages, where you see that one house dwelling is all they have. So the whole idea of urban housing. Secondly, the idea of go and wash your hand, the water and sanitation. People do not have access to the water supply, individual toilet. And that is the whole chain of water and sanitation hygiene, which is bringing the debate that where, how to safeguard those issues. And lastly, the parks and open spaces, which Mr. Patel has given this interesting relation with New York and some other places. But lastly, I recently wrote a blog, is kind of, you know, that every time cyclone came or any natural disaster came, we always have taken stride and building back better. So, you know that when earthquake came in Ahmedabad, subsequently, there are a lot of changes in our building regulation, safer construction practices. So let us take this whole opportunity to build back better and living back safer. And that's what my presentation today, what I wanted to share, that this is what I would like to say, that the spirit of resilience and spirit of sustainability, that we don't want to go back to that old situation. We want to make it our life and living, both Jan and Jahan, more safer and more resilient into this. In this whole crisis, there are some very nice silver lining. As you can see, this is SAFER data. This is Delhi, which was, you know, in air pollution. Delhi was always very critical. So this was the before lockdown, then during the lockdown, and the green is about after the lockdown. About 20 days after the lockdown, my pollution control board's friends are delighted to see that this kind of low air quality index can ever happen in India. So from a red to yellow to green and all across major Indian cities, you are actually is getting to see a much clearer air quality. And also all of you have seen this very interesting case of Jalandhar. The haze, the sky haze was gone, and they started seeing the Himalayan range. Our children are getting to see better water quality because we have forgotten what is a clean water, clean air. So air pollution, noise pollution, the water pollution, and accidental deaths have come down. So this is what actually, so COVID is a challenge. It is also a threat, but it is turning out to be a great teacher, which is actually showing us a lot of new things in life or new ways of living life together. I just wanted to just bring this whole epidemics and urban development back to some historical context. Patel sir talked about this great stink of London in mid-50s, the cholera, and that created the whole sanitary condition. I want to go a little bit down later. This whole Epidemic Disease Act, through which we are governed today, which is about 123 years old act, which is now being imposed from Karnataka to Maharashtra to various state government. And that's what probably the debate has brought back to those whole issues of public health and safety. This what Patel Sahab has already talked about, that insanitary condition, living, and brought back to major changes in building regulation. Much of the building regulation, much of the reorganization of space, planning regulation came from this particular incident. Also, the Sanitation Act, Public Sanitation Act in Britain was also followed. And as all of you know, because of the planning community, Patrick Geddes was actually a biologist. and he took up town planning. He wrote a lot of things about society and people, but then he wrote 8 documents about many of 8 Indian cities, and much of it related to public health and public health related aspects. So this is what this act, which is being governed, and you may be surprised because we have Disaster Management Act of 2005, but surprisingly the 1897 Act, which was actually came out of bubonic plague in Mumbai, which then gave that extraordinary power of life and to control life and living, and taking away rights, including the digital. That time there was no digital rights. So this is what a kind of a watershed act, and still, even after 123 years since it was launched, if some of you are interested, can go and see. It is just 2 or 3 pages. Very simple act, gives extraordinary power to public agencies, and it has been constantly in use. In 2018, it was used in Gujarat, 2015 Punjab, and 2009 in Pune. So that act has been constantly in living. More importantly, this whole idea of social and spatial distancing was introduced by Britishers in 19th century. After the plague, what have happened in Mumbai, they started using this social distancing method. And as you know, Bombay City Improvement Trust, Mumbai City, Chennai Improvement Trust, and Calcutta Improvement Trust. And social and spatial distancing was used in form of a civil lines and cantonment areas, where Britishers and Europeans were distinctly segregated, safeguarding not only their security, also because of the public health related aspects. So the social and safe distancing came as a practice of response to some of the public health endemics that took place. And then they reflected in terms of, when you see some of the colonial urbanization, there are metropolitan cities areas, and immediately close to that, because of to escape the health disease, they also started working the hill station around them. Even like Ooty, Shimla, few others, the moment there is a public health issue, they are looking at those kind of areas to get. So public health endemics have always remained a concern for many of the city planning aspects. But somewhere down the line, when the modern city planning unfolded and the density and probably the economic priority took over, and then probably we lost somewhere the focus and it shifted to many other areas of aspects. So I just want to quickly show some of the modern level vulnerability in terms of what before this pandemic came in. There was a large vulnerability which was taking place in terms of climate change in the green cover loss and urban heat islands. And this is India. And there are some of the colleagues from WRI was actually doing this calculation that how cities are sprawling in India. And it looked at Delhi. Delhi is adding about 54 square kilometer every year, central Delhi. And it is compared to in Paris, is the whole central Paris is about 108 square kilometers. So in terms of sprawling, Delhi and many other cities are actually adding close to about 40-50 square kilometer, meaning one Paris in every 2 years. That is the kind of expansion. And when these cities expand, it starts moving into periphery. And then this is the case where this, as you all know, the Chennai flooding, the outskirts of Chennai, we have a wetland, many cities like Mumbai, Calcutta, Chennai. And this was slowly getting transferred for built use as the sprawl increased. And there was a massive flooding successively taking place. And Chennai is a paradox, both it is flooding as well as at the same time, it is a water scarcity. So these are the kind of challenges that are taking shape and building. And that's what these cases, what Patel sir was talking about, Taipei or Singapore and Hong Kong. I just brought one case just to share with colleagues, because we have been going in multiple times to bring some of the cases, that how Singapore is managed and flattened its curve much faster in spite of having larger density. And what are the key tricks Singapore is doing, probably some lessons for us. because most of the discourses, every time we talk about US and Italy, but actually our closed door neighbors, both in Hong Kong, Singapore, Taipei, and few others have managed COVID's condition much, much better than any other. And mind you, many of them have not locked down fully. They have managed it very cleverly in both ways. And what Singapore has done, traditionally, Singapore has building a lot in spite of a very high real estate price, very high, because it's a landlocked 700, 600, 700 square kilometer space, about 6 to 7 million population, almost at the scale of Ahmedabad. Doesn't have their own water supply. Much of its water comes from Malaysia. But I want to show you the two satellite images from 1986 to 2007. In spite of very high real estate price, very high density, Singapore has been constantly building on its blue and green infrastructure. Extraordinary emphasis given building, because they have understood for flood, both blue and green, and microclimate and any changes and any pandemic disease, these are our first army to combat, to safeguard us. And how? See, this is what Singapore runs, because I see a lot of planners from, we are taking a lot of city officials to visit to Singapore. They come back with the FSI and gross floor areas. But what Singapore cleverly does, and probably this is a good example for planners and regulators in Ahmedabad and other cities, it has an extraordinary guidelines called Landscape for Urban Space and High Rises, called LUSH. And LUSH is also very interesting, like, that we always talk about gross plot ratio and gross floor areas. Singapore has an extraordinary tool called green plot ratio. And they work out areas in the urban plan that where the green cover is low, where we have to improve the landscape, and this green plot ratio is used. And LUSH is an incentive provided for the developer to develop more green and take away some of the benefits. In fact, some of you who are working in RERA as a RERA Act, there is a clause in 32E, has a provision of environment and sustainable development in real estate projects. And I would like to draw to your attention, some of you are engaged with the RERA activities. Please use some of this provision which is already embedded in the Act, and allow some of these are our first line of defense if you are diminishing in our lines of. And this is what Singapore is doing today, is called spacing out strategy. Spacing out strategy in terms of its open spaces, in terms of its malls, in terms of its larger areas. At certain given point of time, they are actually dispersing population so that there is no accumulation. And during the lockdown, and they are maintaining the social distancing from supermarket to small and for other green spaces. And they are doing some extraordinary activity into this. And as you see, this is a very interesting graph from COVID Australia, because this is a long haul game. I think because first we thought by 15th of April, we'll have a celebration. Now we are thinking 20th of April, maybe 3rd of May, but many countries have started preparing a much more long haul. See that, so the quarantine and isolation has flattened, but social safe distancing has to continue for much, much longer period. And that's the challenge, and that's the opportunity for builders, architects, engineers, urban planners, that we have to redesign spaces from urban planning, engineering, and urban spaces, malls, that that many cities now they're actually widening their footpaths because they have to accommodate social distancing. Many malls, parking areas, office spaces, and there is a radical transformation has to happen. The space standards has to change. That's what I think that's the kind of thinking has to go, because it's not a 2020 match that we presume at this moment, because it's going to be much longer. We have to live in a new normal situation with this kind of COVID threats all around. And the challenges, as Mr. Patel mentioned, challenges is not partly with us because we are sitting in a lockdown in our apartments and bungalows, but challenges are this kind of settlement where the housing conditions are shared, the living conditions are shared, toilets are shared, water access to water hygiene is low. So these are some of the challenges that one has to prepare for it and start looking at how do we respond. And it needs a response from integrated either regulation, urban plans, urban design, and urban governance. Not one alone, but it's together. This needs to come out and show us some direction and how this can be taken up. This I have seen some of these malls. Now, this would actually now, when you open up on 3rd or 4th of May, if you want this, again, that COVID not to strike us back, probably we need this kind of space design. Temporary spaces, quickly convertible spaces. In US, around 2008, 2009, there was a whole notion called tactical urbanism or tactical urban design, where a lot of spaces were taken over for low cost makeover and changes. Also, a lot of flexi spaces. For example, working for home. Working for home would not be feasible for more than 15-20% of urban citizens. It is only possible because there was just a study day before yesterday released in Mumbai. 68% people share only one bedroom kitchen where the whole family lives. So working for space, working from home would be only available to only a strata of people, some of the elites and upper middle class who has spare room to do. So probably we have to pool spaces, common working spaces. And as very interestingly pointed out by Mr. Patel, probably we have to define a micro neighborhood strategies or a town planning scheme to design where there is a mix of social mix, where our Dudwala, Kiraniwala and everybody coming together. As all of you have seen, there has been all these e-commerce have fallen flat during this crisis. And only our local neighborhood shops have saved many of the societies. So we have to learn to live with social distancing and safe measurement in some coming weeks and coming months. These are some of the spaces, your shops, your offices, your theaters, your airlines. Very interestingly, I saw some of the airlines have already done that in one row, they will only allow 2 or 3 passengers. We have to do similar adaptation and retrofitting in our public toilets, school, colleges, bus stops, and a lot of such changes have to happen in terms of, so from regulation, from urban planning and urban design and governance, I think this is the time, instead of being very reactive, we have to come out and being proactively work, giving more proactive studies and suggestions to our the commissioner or the local government. As you know, after the earthquake, there was a lot of discussion about risk-sensitive urban planning, which Mr. Patel was talking about climate resilient planning. That this is a time, globally, like in John Hopkins in the USA, they do a study of the risk sensitivity, public health risk sensitivity about the urban spaces in terms of the outbreak, cholera, malaria, dengue, any other this environmental disease. And this is a kind of a layer, strategic layer we have to bring in terms of risk sensitivity. Because COVID risk will vary from people living in a bungalow, vis-a-vis an apartment, vis-a-vis a row house, vis-a-vis a shared space or a slum or a gamtal or a old city. Now, this kind of risk sensitization, risk classification has to come in. We had made an attempt earlier during Gujarat earthquake, Ahmedabad earthquake. Some attempts were done of earthquake microzonation, but for public health pandemics, probably we have to revisit and keep this whole, bring it to this urban planning and designing discourses in the. So lastly, again, I bring back to this whole idea called building back better, because this is an opportunity for us, because this COVID has turning out to be a great teacher and pointing out some of the probably the oversights or mistakes that we have made. And an opportunity for India is that much of our urban infrastructure, the smart cities are yet to be built. So this is the opportunity if we organization like GICA, the town planners, the regulators, the agencies like RERA come together, because we have to create a kind of a situation that is win-win situation. Few months back, I was in Maharashtra in a similar seminar of environment resilience. And you know that seminar, everybody was blaming builders, that builders are actually the spoiler of urban environment and they are destroying greens, etc., etc. But same morning, I saw that Pune's morning newspaper, it was a Saturday in Times of India. I saw most of the builders, the real estate developers advertisement, they are showing, you know what, they're showing forest view, green view apartment, lake view apartment, hill view apartment. All the real estate ads were related to environment. Nobody has sent a single ad called road view apartment, junction view apartment, or market view apartment, or shopping mall view apartment. So I took that page and I showed it to that workshop and all the real estate developers. I said that real estate developers are not anti-environment, because environment is your part of your business. Because when you sell those last green, hill view or lake view apartment, you see the buyers coming in. So we have to create together. Presently, we have gone into a very chore police kind of situation where regulator will run and pollution control board will run. I think this is the time we have opportunity to reconsider and building back better. And lastly, I'm taking this very interesting image, which was the image of 1933. A student of mine, she shared from Calcutta, is an image called Ideal Home, drawn in 1993 by Mr. Robinson, and it's called Living Back Better. You know, today, if you look at our spaces, lockdown spaces, we are actually relearning how to live in our houses, rework out the spaces. So we are also trying to live safer, inclusive, and resilient. So this is what Sustainable Development Goal 11 is all about. That we have to build back decent, safe, inclusive, and resilient towns and cities. And we are talking about large cities like Ahmedabad, Surat. The problem and challenge will be much more to like smaller towns like Anand, Nadiad, Mehsana, and other places. So I think this is the time I think we have to come out, because if in the history of urbanization and the whole century, this is the first time a disaster of this scale, a pandemic of this scale has happened. So we have to come out of our business as usual mode to actually start rethinking, redesigning. Imagine 1 month back, if we do this kind of seminar, you will not find 10 people joining. Government of India has been giving so much of grant to do online learning. But today, I was just in another seminar 2 hours back. We had about 300 people join. Every time, students, morning, all our professors in CEPT or other universities are actually doing online courses. So there are a lot of transformation happening. A collector in West Bengal has using digital data to actually marking digital footprint, that how many people have visited that mosque assembly in Delhi, just mapping the digital footprint of the mobile phone. So this is the fourth revolution. We're calling it as a fourth industrial revolution, but I will call it as a fourth public health revolution. So I must thank all of you from GICA organizer, or those of you who are joining. And this is, I think, a kind of, when the history that we are giving us an opportunity to come out of our business as usual mode and actually do resilient. And this entire resilience concept is not to go back. Like I showed you some cleaner environment. It does not mean that we go back to that air polluted after on 3rd May or 4th May, all the vehicles and all the dust particle comes back and Delhi becomes a more polluted. The resilient idea is, which is the father of resilience is called Mr. C.S. Holing. The idea of resilient is that we build back better. So the new normal is not building back where we were. We have to think, how do we build back better? So that's all I wanted to share. Thank you. And thank you for giving us this opportunity. And I must thank Sri K.C. Patel, Yash, and all other colleagues from GICA for doing this webinar and also the series of webinar. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Shashwat sir, thank you for your kind words and your address. And now, as we are done with the speech for both the speakers, Shri N.K. Patel sir and Shashwat sir, so now I will request Shri Vatsal Patel to give concluding remarks, and we can take 4-5 questions thereafter, in case there are any. It's Mr. Vatsal Patel, are you there?
I'm here, but VM Patel is asking one question.
Yeah, VM Patel sir is asking a question. Do we
Yeah.
need the living spaces in such a way that each smaller cluster is itself sufficient in all aspects for minimum needs, very similar to ancient living style? So I think Shashwat sir or N.K. Patel sir, whoever would like to.
Shashwat sir can answer this. Shashwat? Shashwat?
Okay, I think no, it was locked, so it was unmuted. I think it's a very interesting question, VM Patel Sahab, that this question we have to rethink. See, the whole action is about the neighborhood. And as you know that Kerala has been one of the leading state today in battling this whole action about this flattening the curve. So redefining what is community and the neighborhood space, the whole debate has brought back to that spatial configuration. And now, as you know, that we are also many economists and many other the people who are, some of you who are in the construction industry, as you know that we are facing a severe labor shortage and all kind of shortage as soon as this kind of thing is be lifted, the lockdown gets lifted. So there is a need, you redefine what is a neighborhood and is a traditional neighborhood of 5,000 people, what is the social mix? Because today, many societies in Ahmedabad and Gujarat have stopped allowing their milk wala, dudh wala, saag bhaji wala, their maids, their other society people, because in fear of that they will bring infection. So probably the social mix, and we have to redefine some of this neighborhood planning strategies. But this will be quite a difficult proposition given the kind of land use mix and social mix, because in many societies the sharp division between the income group wise segregation. But this would be probably, it will trigger of a new thinking of a neighborhood planning and strategy.
Any other question we have? Yeah, we have a question coming from Mr. Rajiv Shah addressed to N.K. Patel sir. How can we govern urban movements without much restrictions and people get convinced also?
Basically, right now in Ahmedabad, all the roads are legally under lockdown, but people are going as per their need. Some were going for joyride also. So in that situation, as I have said, in the plan itself, under such pandemic conditions, few road will be converted for the emergency and public services. And few smaller road, which is connecting the residential, can be converted in a bicycle and cycle path. So the whole network will be like that. So during that period, if somebody wants any basic need and if he is ready to go, so he know the path. If I want to go to Ambavadi, then I know the path and that can be changed. If there is a red spot in between. So in that case, my digital data will give you a different alternative route. So for that, a preparedness plan for commuting the people should be a separate one, and which will give easy for the police people also, easy for the citizen, and it will also keep little more distancing also.
Yeah. So I think we are having one more question from Dr. VM Patel, that logistic chain is the bottleneck to fight against this COVID-19. What planning care are required to update our logistic chains? So maybe NK Patel sir can take this question.
The logistic, as I have told you, basically, one of the factor is supply of essential things. It may be a medicine, it may be foods. So now, what happened? Each day, the Indian economy is losing 40,000 crore rupees. So a small farmer who has already have a vegetable in his courtyard, something 30 kilometers away, but there is no logistic chain has been established. So that's why I told you about city regional linkages. So that plan will have a linkages, the godowns, their approach, and the roads. So in that case, right now what happened? One of my friend who is a TDO, Mr. Rajesh Patel, last week he was managing the vegetables. The municipal corporation, the duty has been given him to provide in each and every area the fresh vegetable. So what he was doing, he doesn't have any gray, blue or black plan with him. And vegetable vendor, maybe from Dehgaam, maybe from Aslali or maybe from other area are coming. So in that case, a proper planning at regional level. And with that, if you plan a logistic, each time, Indian Railway is also running a parcel train right now. So similarly, for such small farmer, if such small vehicles are flying from 20, 30, 40 kilometers, then logistic will not be that much issue. But after epidemic, if you want to plan, it will not be possible. You have to plan before. Okay, yes.
Yeah. So, Shashwat sir, we have one question coming in. Is this the time when we assign more power to community organization, but at the same time we can see a crisis of governance? There are crashes and differences on approaches to tackle the crisis between all levels of governance. Therefore, how to initiate importance of DPC and planning at community level. Also, how make up communities step up to take up the responsibility.
Okay, thank you, Yash. I have one I'll respond to this question. One, what Patel sir was just mentioning, that you have a separate plan connecting for emergency services, and whether it is your vegetable. So every city has a backward and forward logistics chain, and those critical chain needs to be this needs to be maintained. And whether it is at the town planning level, whether it is a DP level, because that at this kind of crisis, you need to have earmark drill routes done. Many townships, industrial townships, always have an emergency evacuation route, and they do that drill. So probably the city and neighborhood needs to work out those critical passages during this. So that's, I think, the logistic supply chain question. The second question is about that how to empower the local and community-based organization. And this is what a very critical question at this moment, because that this lockdown is an imposed condition. And as many studies are showing, that researchers are showing, the lockdown at a stretch more than 30 days will not give the kind of benefit. So we have to break lockdown and start living, and that's become very, very important. And here, like organization like Residential Society Organization in Gujarat and many other like Delhi, they have RWS, have to play a major role, because the lockdown, the economic cost and health cost, if it is elongated, it becomes very, very chaotic. And a lot of people, a lot of the farm and vegetable, the economic impact, particularly unorganized sector, informal economy will be devastated. Now, if you, for 3rd May or 4th May, one has to really open up the unlock this stage of lockdown, start functioning, you have to engage with the communities. And the community organization here are the Residential Society Association, RWS. For example, during lockdown, I see many societies in Ahmedabad are playing a major role in terms of controlling the circulation, cleaning up in the space, ensuring some of the safe distancing measures. So 74th Amendment, although we say MPC, DPC, in spite of almost now so many years gone, the 74th Amendment, the decentralization, those fears have not been touched upon. So I think at this hour, I think we have to evolve new form of community empowerment and community engagement, and this engagement would be necessary to actually enforce the social distancing and safeguarding measure in long term. So 74th Amendment may not be a panacea for all problems. So we have to evolve, and Gujarat has a very strong residential societies, cooperative movement, and Gujarat can take lead, actually showing some of this initiatives to that.
So now going for the last question, I have one question to NK Patel sir. So, sir, we have many areas which are very highly dense. Like if we go on Sindhu Bhavan Road or if we visit the Shalais, they're in affordable zone. They are G+14 structures with very high density. So, is there any planning intervention desired taking into consideration the pandemic situation that we face this time?
Of course, yes, you are right. Basically, our plan, if you talk about a density, which I talk in my address, and Professor Shashwat has also talked about the density. Generally, our master plan or our researcher does not throw any light about the density. If you see the first master plan of India, I think that is a Delhi, DDA has prepared in 1962 or 63 Delhi master plan. So it was a miserable failure in density front, the population which they have envisaged. So similar conditions still prevails in all our master plans. So just you go back to 2030 February, and suddenly they are preparing a revised development plan and putting a 1 kilometer in depth all over the 78 running kilometer of Sardar Patel Ring Road and affordable zone, and with a 2.7 FSI, right? So in that case, if you go in affordable zone, only few pockets has been developed, which has got a nearness, which has got some services. So South Bhopal is one of that micro market. So now it is a very high time to decide about such density. So suppose in one of my, when I was a research paper, I have given one suggestion for curbing a speculation on land prices, where after the TP scheme, preliminary TP scheme is sanctioned, you will get a 3 FSI for 3 years, then FSI will be reduced to 2 for another 3 years, so 6 years, and after 6 years, it will be reduced to 1. So by doing such changes in your building regulation, you can little control the density. So it is a very high time to look after the South Bhopal kind of scenery.
Okay, sir. So now I will request Shri Vatsal Patel to provide concluding remarks.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, fine. Thank you, N.K. Patel, sir, and thank you, Shashwat. Both the speakers, both the learned speaker gave us very useful and informative things about the present situation. Basically, they both are giving the examples related to the density as well as relation to the other countries all over the world, that how they are ready for such type of things and how they make their city more resilience for this type of pandemic situation or any other disaster situation. Really, some examples from the N.K. Patel presentation was eye-opening, and the same type of situations we are facing in Ahmedabad and we are facing in our Indian cities also. Some of the examples given by the Shashwat Bandyopadhyay about the Singapore and everything, that can also be possible to implement in our cities also. Very important point is our speakers, uh, they just highlighted that after such type of pandemic situation, majority of the governance are making new laws, new bylaws, and new guidelines for the next development. Similarly, after earthquake, Gujarat had done the same thing. And I am very much hopeful that after this pandemic is over, Indian government will also going to do such type of same exercise. But meanwhile, I thanks to the speaker, thanks to the listeners also, because they find a few questions very interesting and which is very important to think after this pandemic situation is over. New planning norms, new intervention of planners into building the existing scenario as well as building the new. The main highlight point is now again there is a debate that whether the smart growth and urban sprawl, smart growth versus urban sprawl. See, initially we always want that the high density, high rise type of development, but this pandemic teaches that actually it is also not the perfect solution for urban scenario. Actually now after this situation, we have to again think about the rural planning, not the urban planning. And the both things came out of these speakers. And now at the end, I must quote one thing of our Prime Minister normally tell that apatti ne avsarma feravani vat. So whatever the situation, we will convert this bad situation into our opportunity, and we will make our cities more. Make our cities more resilience for such type of situation. Thank you, Yash. Thank you, GICA. Thank you, speakers. Thank you, listeners.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Now, before concluding, I would just like to mention that tomorrow we have another webinar organized by Study Circle Committee of GICA with subject of real estate sector outlook September 2020 and beyond. It is tomorrow at 11 a.m. So we request you all to join in large numbers as today, because we consistently had about 150 speakers throughout the session. On an average, initially they were a bit higher, but they at last had about 150 combined on both our Zoom platform as well as our YouTube live. And the speakers for tomorrow will be Shri Bhargav Desai. He's Executive Director in PC Snehal Group, and he's also Director of RESMA and is immediate past President of GICA. And as a second speaker, we have Shri Pawan Bakeri, Managing Director of Bakeri Group. So we request you all to join tomorrow in large numbers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.